Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real, where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. And today, I have kind of a big topic that has been, gnawing at me since I heard about it this morning on a podcast I listened to. And the term that I heard was anti-intellectualism. And the host of this program said that she thought that was what the leaders of America, United States, are exhibiting, anti-intellectualism. And she just made it a comment, like that is what it is. And her guest said, I'm not sure if it's anti-intellectualism or if they're scared. And that got me thinking. I first had to go find out what exactly is anti-intellectualism, and then I kind of dug in a little bit more. And I wrote a lot this morning, and so the things that I was writing, I have notes about down here, and I don't use notes when I'm doing this show, but today I kind of wanted to share what I had been thinking about earlier today. And so I'm going to just share some of these thoughts and just see if this makes any sense to anybody else, or if it's just me, or if it's something that we don't even need to consider. So I first looked up what is anti-intellectualism. And the definition is anti-intellectualism is hostility to and mistrust of intellect, intellectuals, and intellectualism, commonly expressed as deprecation of education and philosophy, and the dismissal of art, literature, history, and science as impractical, politically motivated, and even contemptible human pursuits. That's a big definition. Holy cow. So there's this thing called anti-intellectualism, which turns into a political sidedness, it sounds like. And it's about hostility to and mistrust of intellect, individuals or intellectuals, and intellectualism, commonly expressed as deprecation of education and philosophy, and the dismissal of art, literature, history, and science as impractical, politically motivated, and even contemptible human pursuits. Now that sounds to me like something one side of a political debate would say about the other side. And so when the host of the podcast said that today, I kind of knew which side she was talking about. And then her guest said, but what if? But what if it's not anti-intellectualism? What if the people you are saying are exhibiting this behavior are simply scared? They're scared. They're afraid. And so then I started thinking about that differently. And I started thinking, so if one side of any debate, of any, sided issue, is simply operating out of their own fear, then that would give a whole different light to any of the conversation that comes after that awareness. So I started thinking, what is fear? So I took a course back in 2003 called the Landmark Forum, and I learned that fear, there's only two kinds of fear: authentic and inauthentic. And authentic fear is fear that threatens your physical survival. It's the kind of fear that activates our fight, flight, freeze, fawn, the lizard brain, that keeps us safe. And it's very important if our physical survival is threatened. If your car gets stalled on the railroad tracks and there's a train coming, that's authentic fear. And that has you fight, flight, leave, run, fight, flight, freeze. In some cases, if a bear's running after you and the bear is recognizing motion, you freeze. And fawn is a new part of that I'm not all that familiar with, but I'm guessing it is, suck up to people. Fawn, I don't know. I could be wrong about that. But in that space of authentic fear and inauthentic fear, anything that's not threatening your physical survival is inauthentic. And we've made up stories about that kind of fear. And we've believed that that is how we need to operate. And to me, that kind of fear is... oh, see, this is what happens to me when I talk about things that are could be controversial. I have this little tickle. And I'm not sure why it's controversial, although it's going to get more so because it's going to get more sided. And that's what happens to me when I feel the need to speak about something, but it's something that could be difficult. And I know it does, and it's in the left side of my throat. It always does the same thing. So hang on 1 second. I'm just going to mute for a second, I think, if I can remember how to do that. Maybe not. Fascinating to witness right now in live, on a live feed, because it's true for me. And I need to say this because I think what came up for me in this whole concept of fear, if fear is running the show, we either want to make others scared because then, our ego wins, or we are scared ourselves and we want to avoid that. And the fear that would threaten our physical survival is one thing, but everything that doesn't threaten our physical survival is something completely different. And when we get into the space of allowing our fight, flight, freeze, fawn to keep us safe from things that aren't even threatening to us physically, we turn into somebody other than who we are at our best. And if fear is running the show, if fear is the lens through which we look at the other side of a debate, someone who doesn't agree with the things that the way we see them, then we either get louder so that they can hear us and so that we can get our point across, or we might retreat and take our toys and leave. And so neither of those are effective, in my opinion. So let's talk about fear and its purpose besides keeping us safe. Fear comes from ego. Okay, fear comes from ego. This is some of the work that I've been doing and some of the study I've been taking part in over the past 20 years or so. And I first learned about this from A New Earth, Eckhart Tolle, and also from A Course in Miracles. So fear comes from ego, love comes from spirit. And if there are just two ways of looking at any issue or any subject, and they are love or fear, isn't that an interesting dichotomy? If it's not one, it's the other. And so having courage would require us to recognize our ego, which is there to keep us safe, and often doesn't do us any favors. If we could speak and see the world through the eyes of love, we might do things completely differently. We might see that there's another human on the other side of the debate. We might recognize that maybe they are just scared. Maybe they aren't actually exhibiting anti-intellectualism, which would say, art and history and science are impractically, politically motivated, and even contemptible human pursuits. I think it would change the way we see some of those conversations. It would change our judgment of them, maybe. It would change a lot of things if we just recognized it, if we just could acknowledge that there might be another way than the way I've been conditioned to see things. Now, I'm not saying I'm right about this. I have no skin in the game here. I have no position on this. I'm just curious. So if we could step into the space of courage, not getting rid of fear, but having courage in spite of fear, and we could have that individual courage, we could start being in the space of, I know this is my important work. I know this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to be a scientist. I'm here to be a politician. I'm here to be a teacher. I'm here to, whatever it might be. And if we recognized the why behind that, like, this is why this is so important to me, it would be so much easier to have conversations about whatever it is that inspires us. Not to be right about it, but to share about it. And what's interesting to me when I have conversations like this in real life, very few people ever ask me about my perspective, especially when it comes to politics and sidedness. People make a lot of assumptions about me, and then they throw me into a camp, and then they either, agree with me or disagree with me. And it's never really about the subject. And when it comes right down to it, it becomes very personal at some point. I can't believe you are someone who believes that. People make a lot of statements like all Democrats are liars, or all Republicans are, make up a story, make up something, right? Are anti-intellectualism. How about that? All Republicans are anti-intellectualism and all Democrats are liars. And whenever anybody makes a statement that has all or nothing in it, it has to be wrong, because there's no way every single person in that category could be the way you've described them. So in that space of recognizing, seeing it again, going back to, oh my gosh, yes, this is what feels right to me, that takes courage. And it's individual courage. Although I struggle with this a little bit, I don't believe you have to have millions of followers to have an impact. I've been trying to figure out how to get more followers only because I believe I have something to share. I have something that I'd love to have more conversations about. And I don't have very many followers. And so I recognize that, doing something crazy and doing a dance and, doing something funny gets people to follow you. And that's what it takes a lot of times. I mean, we think it takes millions of followers, but it doesn't. You just have to be deeply committed. See my voice again. Deeply committed to what you really believe. And I really believe things that are often in opposition to people who have taken a side about something. And it seems squishy, and it seems touchy-feely, and it seems wishy-washy, I think, to people who have decided that there's a hard stance, a hard line in the sand. And so if we know what we each are called to be, how we are called to be, let's say, not necessarily what we are called to do, but what we are called to be, the doing of our lives becomes way easier, I think. Because I'm just being enthusiastic. I'm being aware. I'm being happy, joyful. I'm being diligent. And anything I do, then if it comes from that being, has an effect, has an impact. And like I said earlier, I don't think I need to have millions of followers in order to have an impact. So stopping because I don't have a million followers, so I don't have anything to say, or somebody else is already doing this, so what's the point of me saying something? I think if any of us understand that in a way that allows us to step into a space with a perspective, and not necessarily to convince others, although that's what gets the most followers, right? You talk against somebody else and you say what a jerk the other side is. Oh man, everybody wants to share that because that's really juicy. I'm not interested in that, and that's not sexy, which is why I don't have very many followers. So I use this space for me more than anything, for me to work things out, and I'm willing to do it in public because to me, that at least demonstrates that I don't have to have it all figured out before I put it out there. Not very many people are following, so it's not that scary. I'm choosing courage to keep me moving, even when fear could be there to stop me. I'm trusting that something I say will make sense to someone, even if it's only to me, because I listen to this later and then I can hear what came out, what I felt called to say, even though it might not have been well formulated up front. So that takes individual courage. What I know from the work I've been doing for the past 5 years is that being real helps me to get through situations that might be scary. Real is radical, energized, authentic, and learning focused, as you know by now, as if you've listened to this. And by the way, I'm seeing my shirt, and I'll just show you that it's my Fear Less shirt. I really like this shirt. Speaking as we were about fear. So I feel called in some way to be what I'm calling in my mind right now a courageous disruptor, maybe a courageous deviator, not to be messing with another side, but to disrupt the status quo. And that's what I feel I need to do. Small acts of daily disruption. I'm learning to own what I'm calling both my shit and my shine. My shine is what makes me unique, It's my strengths, my skills, my talents. I'm owning that in a way I probably haven't in the past because little ego doesn't allow you to do that. And also my shit, the part of me that I don't particularly love is still part of me. And so if I can own that, not try to hide it, not try to be something I'm not, the things like, and this is a really bad example, but I don't love math. I don't love math. I'm not good at math. And I'm going to own that. I mean, that's just, I wouldn't necessarily call that shit, but it's things that I don't really love to admit. I don't know. I could think of other examples, but you get the point. Own your shit and your shine. Become bold, and you can be more authentic. If you work on being more courageous, in spite of the fear that might keep you small, you'll learn, I think, that it's a practice, and you get better at what you do over and over again. And if I look around at what people are getting really, really good at, especially in political situations, they're getting really, really good at throwing people under the bus. They're getting really, really good at attracting people who want to be right. I'm using the 15 commitments of conscious leadership again. They're below the line. They're unconscious. They are putting out statements of, superiority and conviction and an all or nothing and always and everyone kind of statements. And then other people can say, yes, everybody who isn't like me is wrong. Everybody who doesn't see the world the way I do is stupid. And the language is much stronger than that in many cases. I thought it was a dialogue on a social media post today that I found fascinating. The social media post was by a leadership coach, I guess. And it was very sided politically. And it said, basically, all Democrats are liars. And I just asked a question. So all Democrats are liars? Are there any? I guess I said all politicians are liars. Could you show me an example of some politicians who aren't? And somebody else came on and said, here are two people. Look them up. And I looked them up, and they are Republicans, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm grateful that there are two Republicans, at least in this person's post, who aren't liars, according to her. And then I said, so any Democrats? And she said, no, all Democrats are liars. And of course it was the original post that everybody was saying, yes, 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 I agree, I agree, I agree. And I just find that really interesting because I can't believe that every single person who ever has been a Democrat is a liar. And then I go back to, what is a liar? Is a liar someone who on purpose lies and tries every day to say something that is a lie? This post actually went on to say one person's name in particular, I won't say it, but one particular politician needs to be thrown in jail because he lies all the time. And this is coming from a Republican right side. And so this politician was a Democrat, and he should be thrown in jail because he's a liar. And I just find it interesting to do my best to stay in the middle of these kinds of conversations. Middle meaning, let me try to understand how people have gotten to this place where they are, I think, and again I could be wrong about this, I think they are being led by fear, to go back to the original thought today. Was it about anti-intellectualism, or is it about fear? And are the people who are saying things like, but it says here, anti-intellectualism is hostility to and mistrust of intellect, intellectuals, and intellectualism, commonly expressed as deprecation of education and philosophy, and the dismissal of art, literature, history, and science as impractical, politically motivated, and even contemptible human pursuits. I'm going to make a sweeping generalization here right now when I say this. It seems to me that this perspective would be taken from one political party over the other. And if I look at it that way, and I go back to what the host of the show said and what the guest said that they're just scared. That gives me a whole different perspective. And when people are being what I would say, they're being horrible humans, They're throwing people under proverbial buses. I hope not literal buses. They're just treating people as if they are objects instead of as human beings. They're scared. They're really, really scared. Their egos are getting threatened. And that's what it means to see the world through the eyes of fear. If we see the world through the eyes of love, we can not justify and condone behaviors necessarily, but really understand that, oh, a person who is being threatened, their ego is being threatened and is really afraid, well, no wonder they're holding on tight. They're feeling like their physical survival is at stake. It's not really, but that's inauthentic fear. My physical survival is at stake if somebody finds me out, if somebody recognizes that I don't really know what I'm talking about, or that what I'm saying is actually a lie on my part. What would happen then? I have to be defensive. I have to be closed, defensive, and committed to being right. That's unconscious in their leadership. What would happen if they brought their own behavior under a spotlight? What would happen then? That they would learn something themselves. Then what? Oh my gosh, I have been wrong for all this time. I've been saying that these people do it wrong, or, and then all of a sudden the spotlight's turned on me and I have to admit that maybe I was wrong. Goodness sakes, that is an ego hit. And I get it, man. I get it. If that's what people are battling with in their own understanding of themselves, no wonder people are doubling down. And politically, it's easy to see this because there's really not a lot of kindness in politics right now. There's a whole lot of fight and not even a stand for things. It's a fight against the other side, the other person, the other point of view. And I would love to learn more about what people stand for. Why are we doing the things we're doing? Why are we, pick a topic right now. Why are we saying yes to a $40 million plane? Why are we saying no to that? What is it that has people take this stand that they've taken? And America, think about United States, I have to say, because America is more than just the United States of America. The United States was founded on freedom, not on necessarily equity. This podcast this morning really had me thinking about a lot of things, and I would tell it to you. I would tell you what it is, except that as I say what it is, I think that would be just a red flag for someone who heard a podcast. I had a conversation with somebody one time, and I said, I heard something on NPR. It was really interesting, and he immediately shut me down and said, well, that's not a real news source. So he wouldn't even listen to what I had learned because of the source. It reminds me of the trouble I got into teaching a class a couple of years ago where I used a quote by Henry Ford, which I love. I love the quote. He says, thinking is the hardest work people are ever going to do, which is probably the reason so few people do it. But this person just called me to task and said, I can't even believe that you would use a quote from someone who's such a, what is he, anti-Semite, and who is a misogynist, and who is a capitalist, and I'm just throwing Henry Ford. I mean, I don't know I do know about Henry Ford, but you missed the point if you were just looking at who said it. Again, I can be more aware, I can be more conscious, I can use different sources if this is what happens to people when they just lose their minds about something that they miss the point. Anyway, so all of this to say that we have to be really careful these days. Political correctness is, man, it's hard because I don't want to piss anybody off, but in the way I try to do things, I piss everybody off. So it's really fascinating. And again, going back to what I said earlier about how nobody ever asks me, what do you think about this? They make assumptions. And because they've made an assumption, they can't hear what I'm saying. And that's so fascinating to me. So I have one or two people now that I can really dig in with and say, please help me understand this from your perspective. I'm coming to you as someone who wants desperately to understand why I have so many friends who hate each other because of the color of shirt they wear when it's time to vote. And I can't for the life of me understand that. I have relatives who are like, I can't believe you're so stupid that you would back this person. Or where have we, what has happened to us that we've come here to this place? I mean, my goodness, people, let's talk. Let's have a conversation about that. Let's be open, curious, and committed to learning. Let's be conscious in our conversations. Let's be conscious when we go to the grocery store and see somebody who, I don't know, has a dirty shirt on. And instead of saying, oh, that's a loser person, maybe that person fixed somebody's car in the parking lot. I mean, my goodness, let's stop making assumptions about things before we've ever asked questions. Because certainty kills curiosity. And if we want to make any kind of impact in the world, curiosity is something we might want to get better at. Or not. I'm not here to tell you what you need to do. I'm here to share with you how I'm working to see the world. How I hope to make an impact. How I hope to leave a legacy at some point. It's beyond the name and the popularity and the number of TikTok followers and all those kinds of things. I think it's beyond that. And at some point, we could talk about capitalism at some point. Capitalism, socialism, Marxism, fascism. What did I miss? Socialism, communism. All these things I don't understand to the extent I probably should to even throw them out there. Yet I've been called all of them. And I don't even really know what that means. Because nobody's ever asked me. They call me a communist. They call me a socialist. They call me a MAGA. They call me a blah, all these names. And I'm like, people, have you ever just taken a second to wonder? To ponder? To be curious? Or are you just looking to be right? And maybe that's what it comes down to. Maybe that's the point of this whole conversation today. Is it about anti-intellectualism? Is it about fear? Is it about being right? Is it about staying unconscious in our awareness of our impact on the world? Maybe. So if I'm going this route by myself, I guess it'll be a lonely road. But at least at the end of the day, I can look in the mirror and say I did the best I could to stay conscious. And whether or not people follow me, whether or not people come with me, whether or not people like what I post, I don't know. I don't know how to see if I'm making a difference. I guess what I'll do is look in the mirror. And at the end of the day, if I know I did the best I could, then I guess that'll be my measurement. And if I'm wrong about something and learn something and change my mind, heaven help me do that. I want to remain open, curious, and committed to learning. And that will mean that if I'm learning, I'm changing. If I'm learning, I'm changing my mind. If I'm learning because I have a new set of facts over here, somebody's told me something that I didn't know before, then I darn well better change my mind. Because that means that I learned something. So I will do my best to be an example. Because if I'm not an example, I'm just going to be a warning. And again, at the end of the day, who do we have in our corner? I'm the only person I'm never going to leave or lose. Me. So if I don't like me, it's a pretty lonely existence. So thanks for listening. Thanks for being with me on this journey. I don't know. We'll see. We're in season 6 of the podcast, and we now are up to 74 followers. So thank you, 74 people who follow on YouTube. It's not about the numbers. It can't be about the numbers. If I only am looking at the numbers, then I'm not being effective in my own authenticity. I'm not being real. I'm not being who I know. I'm learning that I'm put on the earth to be. And I guess you can count on me to be messy in the middle. And I'll do what I can to understand. And at some point, I will make my own determination and attract the people who want to remain above the line and be open, curious, and committed to learning. Because to me, that's the most fun path to take. So, thanks everybody. Do what you can this week to get real. Or not. Just be you. Be you. Be authentic. Be real. Whatever that means to you. Thanks everybody.